Welcome to this month's basic training video. In this video, we will discuss and demonstrate some tips for enhancing engine company operations through Hoseline Management. We will also take a quick look at the hose loads on the new Pierce engines, soon making their way into the field. Proper training, thorough pre-planning, a detailed scene size-up, accurate hose line selection, and knowing your role and responsibilities within the team. These are all essential components of good hose line placement and management. We will take a look at these today and hopefully give you some tips to keep in mind. The most basic part of hose line management is knowing your apparatus and its hose load setup. The new Pierce Enforcer engines that will be rolling out soon are set up differently than the Crimson, Pierce, or Freightliner engines you may be used to. For familiarization on the new Pierce setup, we will take a quick look at the planned hose loads for these rigs. The Pierce engines will come with 2 cross lays, a booster reel, 4 pre-connected lines off the rear, 2 100-foot bundles, and a portable rapid attack monitor, or RAM for short. Both cross lays on the new Pierce Enforcer engines will be 200 feet of 1.5-inch Mercedes Kraken XO hose line with a 150 gallon per minute nozzle. These nozzles have an integrated 7/8-inch slug tip. The booster reel is comprised of 200 feet of 1-inch hose. Remember, this line is not intended for interior fire suppression operations or vehicle fires. Deploying from the rear of these new engines are 2 300-foot pre-connected lines. They are 2-inch hose and are paired with a 250 gallon per minute nozzle. These nozzles have an integrated 1 1/8-inch slug tip. The next rear deploying line on the driver's side is 300 feet of Mercedes Kraken XO 1.5-inch hose line. This is paired with a 150 gallon per minute nozzle and an integrated 7/8-inch slug tip. The final line deploying off the rear of the new engines is 250 feet of 2.5-inch hose. This is paired with a 1 1/4-inch smoothbore nozzle. This line is designed to flow 325 gallons per minute. As a note, the new Pierce Enforcer engines will also have 2 100-foot 2-inch hose bundles, similar to those bundles already found on the Crimson engines. An Elkhart RAM portable monitor will also be part of the new Pierce inventory and stored inside a compartment. This portable monitor is designed to be supplied by a 3-inch hose and will flow 500 gallons per minute. All new hose lines on the Pierce Enforcer engines will be Mercedes Kraken XO hose lines. Per the manufacturer, these hose lines should not be interchanged with other brands or types of hose lines. They should only be coupled with other Mercedes Kraken XO hose lines. For more information about the new Mercedes Kraken XO hose line, please review Information Bulletin 19-3. Vital to the preparation phase of hose line management is knowing the buildings within your response area. Pre-planning and conducting training evolutions at these buildings will give companies an advantage should a fire occur there. Conducting a pre-plan will allow for companies to recognize scene hazards, unique hose line deployment needs, and determine what hose line tactics will work best. Upon arrival on scene, a size-up should be conducted by all members responding to a structure fire. Utilizing pre-incident plans, information from ECC, and area knowledge, personnel can begin to plan their hose line stretch. Things like occupancy type and size, construction type, fire conditions, apparatus placement, and obstacles such as fences, walls, pools, shrubs or trees, vehicles, and elevation changes are all important factors in determining hose line selection. Building size is also an important factor to consider when determining an appropriate hose line. A simple way to determine the amount of hose line needed is to break the hose line stretch into segments. The first part of the hose line stretch will be the distance from the engine to the point of entry. This is referred to as the rig to the door. Here are some great tips for estimating distances outside. Telephone poles are typically 75 to 100 feet apart. A single vehicle driveway is usually about 25 feet long, and a two-car garage is about 25 feet wide. The second part of the hose line stretch is to determine the amount of hose line needed inside the structure to properly extinguish the fire. This is commonly referred to as door to fire. The best way to determine this number is to add the length of the building to the width of the building. Keep in mind that an additional 25 feet should be added for each floor, up or down. Using this method will allow the nozzle to reach every room in the building. By adding your rig to door and door to fire numbers, you will be able to determine the total amount of hose line needed for the stretch. As the nozzle person approaches the building, part of their size up should include the entry point itself. When stretching to an inward swinging door, the best practice is to usually set up on the hinge side, as the majority of inward doors open into a wall. Just remember, it's still important to check behind the door for occupants and doors to other rooms. When stretching into an outward swinging door, the nozzle person should be on the door handle side. This will help prevent the hose line from getting caught on the door. The best way to ensure a charged hose line can move efficiently inside a structure is by setting it up properly outside of the IDLH. Remember that no more than 2 hose lines should be placed through the same opening. Utilizing a ladder, a different stairwell, or another door or window will help to improve hose line movement inside the structure. Keep in mind that when stretching into a window, ensure a ladder is placed for entry and the hose line is laid out in line at the base of the ladder. In addition to hose line length, hose line size and deployment methods are important considerations when determining your choice of hose lines. A critical factor to consider is how much water will be needed to overcome the heat, measured in BTUs, that is being produced. The gallons per minute should meet and exceed the needed fire flow. Remember that a variety of methods are available when determining how to perform a hose line stretch. These could include utilizing a pre-connect, extending a pre-connect, building a leader line, performing a hose line raise to a window or a balcony, or a hose line drop from a window or a balcony. The method chosen will depend on the needs of the scene and may vary from structure to structure. Effective, efficient firefighting requires coordination and teamwork. Each crew member must know their role in the deployment of a given hose line. The engine officer will be responsible for conducting an initial on-scene report, or IOSR, a 360 circle check, and providing updates via radio to incoming units. The engine officer will advise the hose line team if they need to move the hose line to another entry point other than the front door. In the event of 3-person engine staffing, the engine officer must also perform the functions of the backup person. The engine officer will also provide a situation update report, or SUR, and make entry with the hose line team. The nozzle person is responsible for shouldering the nozzle section and taking it to the entry point as designated by the engine officer. The nozzle person should avoid pinch points and do their best to ensure a straight stretch of hose line is made. On the approach to the entry point, the orientation of the door should be noted and the hose line deployed for best position. Hinge side for the inward swinging door and door handle side for the outward swinging door as discussed earlier. The 50-foot coupling should be beside the nozzle person at the entry point. Once the hose line is deployed, the nozzle person can call for it to be charged and begin the process of preparing for entry. The backup person is critical to moving the hose line both inside and outside the structure. While it's not a glorified position, it is important to have an experienced backup person to ensure the nozzle person reaches the seat of the fire with minimal drag and effort. The backup person is responsible for the second shoulder load when applicable, and should ensure the hose line does not get kinked, pinched, or hung up on any obstacle. They should verify with the nozzle person the quality of the stretched hose line before the nozzle person calls for water. By taking a few seconds to ensure there are no issues with the stretched hose line, the backup person will save a great deal of time when advancing the line inside the structure. The driver of the engine is responsible for ensuring the hose line is cleared from the hose bed, and there are no kinks or obstructions in the area of the engine. They will start the process of establishing a water supply while listening for the call for the hose line to be charged. Let's take a quick look at some additional ways of deploying the Minuteman hose load. Accordion forward. The accordion forward is a method of deploying the nozzle person's shoulder load into the front yard while moving towards the entry point. The nozzle person will grab the nozzle with their right hand and the fourth fold of the hose line with their left hand. When they're about 25 feet from the structure, the nozzle person will drop the right shoulder and turn towards the right, dumping the shoulder load on the ground. They will continue to move toward the entry point with the nozzle in one hand and the fourth fold of the hose line in the other. This will ensure the 50-foot coupling will be near the door. The V-split. The V-split is a technique of hose line deployment in which the nozzle person will hold the nozzle and bottom three folds of the hose line in their right hand, and the remaining hose line in their left hand. When they are at the entry point, the nozzle person will drop their shoulder load in a similar manner to the accordion forward method. The backup person or nozzle person will then grab the bites on either side of the split and walk them away from the entry point, allowing the hose line to play out cleanly with the nozzle and the 50-foot coupling at the entry point. It's important to remember that with any deployment method, the lead section of hose line, or the nozzle section, should be on top of the other hose line sections. This reduces friction and makes the hose line advancement that much easier. This concludes the July monthly basic training video. We have provided some tips for enhancing engine company operations through efficient and streamlined hose line management. We hope that you and your crews have picked up on one or two new things to add to your toolbox that may apply when you need it the most during your next incident or training evolution.